good evening, and welcome to our ReggieCon panel discussing the sci-fi television series, The Expanse, in celebration of Universal Human Rights Month. We're super excited tonight. My name is Jana Albrecht, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management here at Illinois State. Before we begin the panel, I have a few details to keep everything running smoothly for all of you in the audience. First, we do record the session, and it will be posted to the ReggieCon website. Second, if you need confirmation of attendance for class tonight, we'll post that link towards the end, and so you can go ahead and complete that at that time. And then third, the presenters' video and audio are on, but we can't hear or see any of you as guests. So that said, we do monitor the Q&A function, and we encourage you to ask those questions of the presenters. They love this part of the panel, so ask the questions frequently, and as you have them, just know that it might be a minute for them to get to answering your questions, but they will do that. And so final update before we get started is just a reminder to check the ReggieCon website for previous panels. There's some really cool stuff out there, and it also allows you to stay in the know for future panels and events. Okay, so enough of the housekeeping. At this time, I am pleased to introduce our fearless leader, Dr. Scott Jordan. Dr. Jordan is a great friend. He's also the former chair of psychology here at Illinois State, and he happens to be our moderator and the panelist for tonight's discussion. So Scott, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Albrecht, and thank you for all your continuing support of ReggieCon. And welcome everyone to ReggieCon, the con that asks the question, hey, what's your story? I'm Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty. I'm a cognitive psychologist philosopher here at Illinois State University. And tonight I'm just giddy as a kid. We've come together to celebrate Universal Human Rights Month with a discussion of what I consider to be one of the most important narratives of our time. A story devoted to the strength we can find in our differences, the beauty and challenge of leadership, and an understanding of power and change that I believe transcends contemporary notions of gender, race, and rights. I'm talking about none other than the absolutely amazing TV program and series of novels, The Expanse. Joining me in tonight's discussion are four wonderful human beings who played a major role in bringing The Expanse to the screen. First, the guy who brought you the types of spaceship battles that make physicists drool, the one, the only Mr. Robert Bob Munroe. Bob, please come on into the Zoom room.
I'm here.
And tell the audience a bit about what you do, who you are, and then briefly how you got involved in The Expanse.
Well, I am a film and TV producer, director, and visual effects supervisor. I was the senior VFX supervisor for the first 3 seasons of The Expanse, and also a producer on seasons 3 and 4. What I do is basically run a whole department, often the most expensive department on a show like The Expanse, where I hire internal crew, also go out to external vendors. So on The Expanse, we had 11 different VFX houses working on that show, and because of the expanse of the VFX themselves, very high volume of shots for a television show, quite incredible actually. So yeah, I got involved very, very early, oddly enough because of a dolphin. I had done 2 movies for Alcon Entertainment, the Dolphin Tail movies, about a small little dolphin who had lost its tail, and it's a true story, and then it was fitted with a prosthetic tail. Yes. And so Alcon did those 2 shows, 2 movies, I should say. And at the end of the second one, Broderick Johnson, who's one of the owners of Alcon, we were in a screening of some of the visual effects for the second movie. And after we finished screening them, he said, "You've done a lot of TV, right?" Which I had. I'd done a lot of television at the time. And he said, "Well, we have a show that we're going to start. We're going to be shooting in Toronto. We'd like for you to consider being the VFX supervisor." And I said, "Well, what is it about?" And he told me it's a thing based on The Expanse. I hadn't read the books at the time.
Right.
He said it's a science fiction show, and I said, he said, like, they hadn't done a TV show at that time. They'd only done feature films, like The Blind Side and Book of Eli and Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and many other films. So he said, we haven't been in this space before. And I said, well, the great thing about television is that you get to amortize your assets. You build an asset and you get to use it again and again and again over over many
Right.
episodes. And he goes, yeah, not so fast. And he sent me the script for the first episode, and of course, the Canterbury. I'm sure it's not a spoiler
Right.
here for anybody,
No spoiler.
but
Yeah.
the Canterbury was an important ship. It had to be built in CG to a really great degree, a lot of detail. And then at the end of the episode, we blow it up and never see it. So yeah, that through that theory of being able to amortize over a number of episodes, I threw it right out the water. But that's kind of how, like I said, I live in Canada. I've been in the business for 40 years this year. I started a company in 96 with William Shatner. We had a company for 94, I should say, 94. We had a company for 16 years together. And our company created the most expensive animated film ever made in Canada, solely at our company, a Disney film called The Wild. I was a supervising producer on. It was an $80 million movie, and I don't know if we'll ever see another one at that level anymore.
Right.
Budgets have certainly come down. But yeah, so Bill and I, we had the company for 16 years doing both animation and visual effects. And through all of that, I became a producer, sometime director, and oftentimes visual effects supervisor.
Well, Bob, it's really, really good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thanks,
And
Scott.
we'll be back to you in just a second. Keep your mic and camera open. Next, we have the amazingly talented actress who played the revenge-seeking, tech-enhanced Clarissa Mao, who taught us all a little something about what it means to feel like a monster. The one, the only Nadine Nicole. Nadine, please come in and tell everybody a little something about who you are and your connection to the Expanse.
Hi guys. I'm Nadine Nicole. I played Clarissa Mao on The Expanse. I came in around season 3, halfway through season 3, when I needed to get my vengeance with James Holden. I went from foe and a long, big, beautiful arc to friend. Was in jail during season 4, so I missed out on all that fun.
Right.
But came back and had a blast in season 5. One of, I don't know, just the most beautiful journeys of my life, and what an incredible experience with this cast and crew, and just for the opportunity, what an honor to dig into this character. And then we had to say goodbye after season 6. It all felt so fast and a long time ago now, but it still sits very present in my heart, and it was an incredible journey, to say the least.
Well, it's incredibly good to see you again, Nadine.
Nice
Thanks
to
for
see you
being
too.
here. Yeah,
Of
so
course,
sweet.
my pleasure. I'm
Yes.
so excited to talk about this topic. So,
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so then next we have the amazing actor who brought us Fred Johnson, the Earther Gone Belter, power broker who helped save the world by throwing a spaceship at an asteroid, the one, the only Chad Coleman. Chad, please come on in, tell everyone a little bit about your connection to the Expanse.
Hello, everyone. Like I said, Chad L. Coleman, and I'm an actor, obviously, and I played Fred Johnson, had the honor of playing Fred Johnson, and I immediately identified with him as like a Colin Powell figure. Felt like he was in between a rock and a hard place down on Earth with his duties on Earth, and having been placed in a situation where he had to go and give erroneous information that didn't reflect the truth at all. And then being sent on a, no-win mission to, exercise all sorts of atrocities that to my understanding of him, that was not him at all. So it's an incredibly layered character when people see you as a villain and the butcher, as they would call him. And then going from being in the center of acceptance to becoming ostracized and becoming an other, and what that did to his own humanity and own sense of what's right and what he was driven to do subsequently. And how he I think he found another level of humanity.
Yes.
When those atrocities got thrown his way, and he tried to grow into an even better leader, and to try to bring folks to the table who didn't take much of a liking to you.
No.
It's a tall task, but he was up for the challenge. So,
well, he was the only person that could do it, right? I mean, that's the thing and one of the things about The Expanse that's just beautiful is they just give all the characters time to breathe, just time to breathe, to be characters, to move through spaces. Even the secondary characters, as Michael P. might talk about later. But Chad, so good to see you again. I'm thrilled that you're here.
same here, brother.
All right. And last but not least, we have the amazing actor who gave us Erich, the Baltimore gangster with a heart of gold, the one, the only Jacob Mundell. Jacob, please come in and tell everybody about your connection to The Expanse.
Heart of gold. I don't know. Everyone loves to give Erich a little like a heart of gold sort of a tag, but I don't know, man. I think he's a bad dude. Hi everyone. My name is Jacob. My name is Jacob Mundell. I'm an actor. I live in Chicago, and I had the life-changing privilege to be a part of The Expanse, and it's the gift that hasn't stopped giving. I played a character for 4 episodes on season 5, and I was Erich, the drug dealing, human trafficking slumlord who helps them escape to Luna at the end of season 5. And I think Erich's a fascinating character, especially when you're talking about universal human rights, because Erich exists in a liminal space. He's a very wealthy, powerful person, but he's also people who read the books will know that he's the equivalent of undocumented. He is not he's not on the registry of the UN in Baltimore, and that limits what he has access to. What kind of what's it called? Healthcare. What kind of doctors? What kind of and he continues to stay in his liminal space. Even becoming a leader there, and even when he escapes the Earth, he stays off of the radar, so to speak, off the grid. And I think a lot more people live like that than we realize. And it's the way that we move around our systems and through our environments is related to our status or our place, to our universal human rights.
No, what you just said is brilliant, because most people do live in liminal spaces, right? And life is much bigger than any ideas we ever had about it, any policies we created to try to manage it. And The Expanse just does an amazing job of just fleshing out all of those different spaces. So glad that you're here. And now, as if this collection of amazing humans is not enough, we also have a group of superfans who fell in love with The Expanse just like I did. And sharing that love with them has been one of the greater joys of my life these past few years. First, we have Uber fan Michael P. Michael, please come into the Zoom room and briefly describe how you became known as the Expanse Uber fan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael P. I'm an Uber fan, and as I always do, I always thank Bob Munroe, because Bob invited me to the set up there, and so I've actually been to the set of The Expanse, and also too, prior to where I'm now, I'm a senior writer at Friends of Comic-Con, but before that, I was a senior policy analyst for one of those 3-letter agencies in the federal government, and I'm not going to say which one. But no, The Expanse is the most incredible show. And as I've told all the stars here and Bob, you guys produce one of the greatest shows ever. And a single episode, 205, is one of the top 5 episodic episodes ever in television, period, bar none, no exception. Okay, so that's me.
Well, so glad you're here, Michael. Good to see you again. And next we have the Expanse Geeks Facebook page administrator, Chris Keller. Chris, please come to the Zoom room and briefly describe your affiliation with the Expanse. And I know you had something to do with saving the show to some extent. If you could let us know about that.
That's me. I am an admin for the Expanse Geeks Facebook page, and we also have a presence on Blue Sky and all those other socials. But I was an original screening Firehawk, one of the people that I didn't personally fly the plane, but we were involved in flying a plane around the headquarters over at Amazon. We sent a model of the Roxy up into space. My job was just sending emails and letters and petitions to the whole gang, but there were a lot of us on a lot of different channels, and we got our way. And we're hoping to get our way again sometime soon. We're working on it.
Well, that's amazing. Well, it's just really good to see you again as well, Chris. Thanks for so much for being here. And next we have, by the way, just make it clear, the ship is pretty full tonight, but it's a big party, but they're all great people, I promise. So next we have podcaster supreme, co-founder of Sister Speak Productions, Kelsey Williams, aka Sister K. Kelsey, please come on into the Zoom room. Tell us a little something about your favorite experience with The Expanse, other than the current moment, by the way.
The current moment is probably my favorite so far. No.
All right, then.
So thank you, Sir Zombie Scotty, as I call you. Sister K, aka Kelsey, Sister Speak Productions, and we talk about TV and movies from a sister's point of view for 17 years now. And The Expanse is one of my favorite shows as well. And I think it's because of I always love stories that show families that aren't blood related. So people who have come from all different places, somehow through circumstance or jobs or whatever, and they've become their own little family. And I think that's why I love The Expanse so much, because then we also get to see different perspectives based on what we're going to talk about tonight. Also, different perspectives which really mirror life today.
That's fantastic.
So I think that's what I love so much about it.
And always, it's an absolute delight to see you today. We've fallen out of touch a little bit. We got to get back to that. Yes. Thanks for being here. Next, we have JPL Nassau designer Chris Blackwood. Chris, please come into this room and tell us about the event you held at JPL regarding The Expanse.
Yeah, as you can see from the grin on my face, it was one of the top 10 days of my life. And I have had a kid, and I did get a job at JPL. So it's in very good company. As we had this wonderful day where we brought Chad and Kara G, Nadine, Bob, Glenton Richards, who is a writer. And did we bring anybody else? Was that it? It feels like that's a lot. We brought all these people to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We gave them a tour, and they got to see the master of Voyager's golden record. We got to see the mission control. I mean, it was just a great tour. Went in the Mars yard and met some robots. And then to top it all off, they gave a panel discussion in our biggest auditorium. It was packed full. People dialed online, and we just discussed all of the engineering and science challenges in The Expanse. It was really an amazing conversation. And if I hadn't mentioned, Scott and Michael and Chris were there as well. And they were an incredible part of this.
It was truly a peak experience. I gotta say, I was like, of course, fanboying like crazy, but being able to speak to the folks at JPL about energy transformation systems was peak experience. So glad you're here. And then Julius, are you here?
Here, sir.
Okay. Are you okay then? So last but not least, we have Bradbury group member, connoisseur of all things storytelling, Julius Vladimir Francisco. Julius, please come in and tell the group a little something about your connection to The Expanse.
It's really through, can be known as the guy who brought Filipino martial arts panels through the convention circuit. I used to also have like a booth at Artist Alley, which I no longer do. And then I used to be the youngest member of Ray Bradbury's cadre, but not anymore. So it was through Michael. I've known him for years. It really didn't really start speaking to him until 2019. And we got to give him mad kudos because it's super fans like him, like a couple of other dozen people that got the show revived. There's really like a seminal group of like 68 people, several dozen people throughout the planet that like created that viral marketing campaign. And so we just got to bow to Michael and Chris, and I'm wearing a different gear because these are other intellectual properties that inspire the Expanse because they're very similar to each other, like Mass Effect. So,
well, Julius, as always, great to see you again. And thanks for being here. And before we go any further, I have to thank those people out there in the world who are doing their best to make us look like we know what we're doing. I want to begin with Mr. Sean Thornton. He does all the artwork for ReggieCon, and the image he put together for this month is just stunning. T-shirt quality stuff, y'all. Art print on the wall. Absolutely amazing. I actually asked Sean to stop by about 8:20 because I do want him to be able to see you all and have you all say some nice things about his work. And of course, Dr. Jana Albrecht, who is the director of the office that supports ReggieCon every year. Very much appreciate her efforts. Miss Summer Simmons, as I said earlier, makes sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and everybody shows up. So thank you, Summer. Miss Dani Schroeder, she works in university marketing and communication. She has to approve anything that has an ISU label on it. So we thank for what she does. And then Ms. Julie Monet Perez, she's in charge of the university's social media. So they post things about upcoming ReggieCon events. We very much appreciate her efforts. And then Ms. Kelly Harmon over in the psych department make sure all the financial aspects of the gig are in place. So I just want to thank them for doing that. I'm so thrilled you're all here. Thanks for the long introductions. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the 4 members of the crew here who were part of producing The Expanse. And what I want you to do is take a few minutes to tell us something about the show, a character, a theme, a scene, or whatever, that you believe speaks to the theme of universal human rights. And then once they've said their piece, then we'll just spontaneously generate conversation, go on from there, and then I'll pick someone else. So we're going to start with Bob. So Bob, what part of the show, theme, person, character, scene, whatever, do you think speaks to the notion of universal human rights?
Wow. Every episode. That's a loaded question. In that I don't know that. Put it this way: I've always equated the Expanse to the expansion of the British Commonwealth, and Britain is like Earth. The United States is like Mars. Building something from nothing, and then every other place that that England exploited or Britain exploited, like the West Indies or India or what have you, that's the belt. So to me, it's a constant battle of a constant story of human rights being compromised in the show. There's not a lot of redemption. There's more exploitation than redemption. So any little moment where there is a human moment of somebody doing something special for a group of people that transcends what they're going through. I can't remember the episode. I should remember. I mean, this is 8 years ago or 7 years ago. There was an episode. I believe they were on Eros, or no? There's an evacuation going on, and they could only fit so many people on the ship that was evacuating.
Right.
And Naomi was there, and she was trying to stay back. And she got into the ship, and just as she was trying to get her friend in, the door closed, and he just like puts his hand on his heart or whatever, and all these people behind him were all going to die, including him. Yeah. And he basically stepped back, held people back, let the door close because that ship was full. And that was a kind. I'm sure somebody on the call will remember exactly what episode it was. I cannot remember what episode it was. But those little moments in the show, where, like I said, a single action transcends the exploitation that they have been suffering from their whole existence. So all those little bits, You know, are there moments where even some of the, you know, the less kind characters did something good? Yeah, I would say that, you know, the way Avasarala basically treated Aaron right, or got, you know, basically gave Aaron right his comeuppance because of the things that he was doing.
Yeah.
So even she was able to, you know, push through and find that moment where, you know, her character again transcended the moment. And I want to tell you guys an amazing. I'll make this anecdote very, very quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah.
So in the episode where she basically dresses down Aaron Wright in her office, I can't remember. I think it was in season 2. Might have been season 3. Where just before he gets arrested, it's an episode before he gets arrested, and she has this probably 2-minute long monologue dressing him down, up one side, down the other. So we do a rehearsal, and she is out there again. This is a rehearsal. This is with all the crew just standing around. Everybody, you know, Chad knows this, and he knows this, and Jacob knows this. When, you know, you're doing your rehearsal, the crew's, you know, you do a private blocking, and then you get your crew rehearsal, and all the crew comes in, and they're all standing around. So 40 of us, 40 of us are standing around, and Sheree does the rehearsal, and she goes on through this 2-minute monologue of basically, like I said, just tearing Aaron Wright apart. And this is something I've never seen before in my whole career. The whole crew gave her a standing ovation for her dress rehearsal, for her rehearsal. It was so good. And then the exact same performance ended up on screen later on. Like she you know, mimicked it perfectly 10 minutes later when it was actually being filmed. So again, that was a little anecdote about Sheree, but the whole thing was, you know, Avasarala even having a moment where there was, you know, a concern for human rights in even in a small way. So it's you know, it's mainly about the exploitation, but there are those gem moments where, you know, they happen every now and then.
So I'm going to just quickly say something about that idea of moments. And as I'll be done in 30 seconds, someone else feel free to kick in when I finish. That is one thing that the show does masterfully, is let those moments of humanity actually be personal and doesn't go grandiose Disney-esque where suddenly everybody's happy. You know, your comment about lack of redemption is just on target. I mean, things change locally for certain characters, but the impact on everybody else is going to take years. So I appreciate you recognizing that. Who else wants to jump in? Jump on in.
Well, if I can just say real quick, Bob was talking about the episode of The Monster and the Rocket, and the character was Champa, and I was going to mention him later on, but he's, I mean, that heart, his heart was so giant, and he was a giant man with a giant heart, and I call him, I talk about those characters, all those little characters, and I call it fanfare for the common man, because they rose, and it's just, we need to kind of like say thank you to those regular people who rise to the occasion and remind us that all of us can be the true heroes. Thank you.
Like what Bronx Tale said, man, the working man is the hero.
Anyone else want to follow up on that?
Well, I just think, you know, Fred was certainly emblematic of the whole human rights deal in terms of the mission he inevitably set out on. So just kind of speak a little bit about, you know, what the dynamics are when it comes to the whole, the notion of human rights. I mean, we should be born.
Go ahead. Absolutely. Go ahead.
That, right? I mean, we should be born with it, but it appears that we have to have a certain amount of leverage in order to own it, you know? What those who are deemed the other or least of these are outsiders, you know, they need advocates, you know, and we need smart, strong, driven, ambitious leaders to protect this preciousness of humanity and human rights, and just being in general, people being safe. It's interesting that it's extended to space, you know.
Yeah.
I thought that, and then, we just think about what's going on right now, with certain individuals who are very ambitious, and, what will that look like as we extend out, how do we preserve that basic human freedom? Are we doing a good job of it, even on Earth right now?
Yeah, you're gonna be.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you're gonna get me talking like a college professor in a moment here. I mean, given certain events in our culture the last month or so, I think I think we've forgotten that democracy is legally protects your right to want what you want. And instead of telling everybody they're right and wrong, I mean, everybody loses that contest on the left and the right. So asking people what they truly want, looking how they live and seeing what they want. This is just a turn. I think human rights exist if we want them to exist. I think that's my point. And when we make it a logical, rational argument, it's easy for someone to lose that argument and just quit. And so, yeah, I find myself in a mood these days and asking myself, what do you want? What stays the same in the world because of the way you're living your life? That tells me what you want. And if you don't want what we call universal human rights, I have the legally protected right to try to persuade you to want that. And I think that that's the political move of the future, is to get at what people want, not what they should do or anything like that. So I'm with
Would
you
you throw
100%.
someone out of the airlock?
Don't ask me that tonight,
In the
man.
name of human rights.
I'm not Mel from
I'm just
I'm
throwing
not,
that out there, brother.
I am not Mel from Firefly. Okay, Jane would have been out. He would have been out for sure. Anybody else got a quick follow up on all that?
I like the I actually like the phrasing of universal human rights because it brings in this this messiness that in Expanse that the human rights aren't universal, and I think it depends on which perspective you're at, which perspective you're in. I think the Earthers, the people who live on Earth, are seen as fat cats a lot. They have the Earth is the breadbasket of the solar system, and they have all the natural air and gravity and water. But so you might think of them, they have better rights to abundance, they have better rights to a nice place to be. At the same time, I believe somebody who's better on the canon, correct me, 50% of the planet is on basic, and so only half of the people have the right to a job or have the right to work. And I believe people who are in the Belter, I feel like the Belters have this sense of like we earn our own keep. We don't survive off of the government's basic. We have the right to work. And so what exactly are and people getting off of Earth to become an intern, to get an internship as an engineer, kind of like Amos did, is a huge privilege to escape the planet to get a job somewhere. So I guess, what does universal mean, and what kind of rights do people want? And I think the last thing I'll say is that I think this show has three different governments in it, and they're all trying to provide rights to their people. And I think if there's anything that I've learned in my life, it's that humans are universally ungovernable. So it's kind of a I'm out of words, but it's
one thing I like.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Kelsey.
Sorry. One thing I really like about the show is it parallels our current world today, because we have all of these perspectives: Earth, Mars, the Inners, and everyone is hating each other because of stories they've told or things that there's bad apples in every group. And because of that, then there's hatred, there's prejudices, there's perceptions that may or may not be true. And everyone is coming at the very beginning of the series, is coming at this issue of how do they all interact with each other with they're terrorists, they're monsters, they don't care about their people, they just want to kill us, so that we're going to have to kill them first. Torture, all of the things that are happening in the very beginning of the series. But what I really love about this is that it changes the perspective as you go along, and you realize everyone is really just trying to live and do what they can for their families and their entities. But because of all of the prejudices, and I love how it parallels racism, especially, I feel like, without saying it, because we're not dealing with just one racial group. In the Expanse, we're dealing with different nationalities or spacealities, I guess, Earth, Mars, the belt. And so you're seeing all these prejudices play out and kind of giving a message without giving the message that's more palatable. Well, no, that's not how you say it, palatable.
Yep.
For some people to ingest. As we know, some people don't even believe racism exists. Crazy, or inhumane practices exist, but it does. And I love the way the Expanse kind of takes on that and does it in a different way to kind of let people understand how this is really playing out in the real world as it does in the Expanse. And in terms of the humanity aspect, even all of the leadership of each of those areas have turned a corner. Avasarala, for one, she started out torturing someone from Mars, and at the end she was really putting herself in their shoes. So I don't know, I really love that aspect of the show.
It's fantastic.
I mean,
please go ahead.
Sorry. Isn't that the best thing about science fiction, though? Because it allows us to interrogate our world, our present world, and our possible futures through all of these different perspectives. And I think in the Expanse, you really do get 3 very different perspectives on human rights in the 3 main tribes or factions, right? And that tribalism and the path that's laid out, that these are the potential paths you can follow, right? You can seek unity through force, as Anderson Dawes wants to do, or you can seek it through diplomacy like Fred Johnson wants to do. I really love that about the Expanse. It's almost an all-seeing eye in some of the writing.
No, it's very much on target. That's amazing. Let's go ahead and ask Nadine. Tell us about what part of the Expanse you believe says something about universal human rights.
I love this conversation. And just all those little moments that Bob was mentioning that make it so human. And you had brought up, Scott, like there are so many great characters that reflect this in their complexities, like Naomi and Prax. And I know one of us wants to talk about James Holden a little bit. But I think, I was really thinking about this concept with Avasarala. She's obviously, we talked about her a lot right now, but she's definitely my favorite. And I have kind of like a woman crush on Sheree. I think she's just the most amazing, fun thing, powerful thing in the world. So I was thinking more about her character. And I think one of the perfect things about her is that she is so flawed, right? She, like we said, she starts off and she's not this champion of justice. She's, brutally hurting someone else, and then she grows into it. And I think it's a reminder to all of us that we don't have to get it perfect. We don't have to know exactly what we're doing off the bat. We just have to kind of start somewhere of like fighting for what's right as we figure it out along the way, and we just have to be kind of willing to learn and change, and then kind of just push back against the systems that hurt people. And it's kind of like a very foundational thing. She's just so brilliant, and she's hilarious, and she's funny, but she's also like ruthless in this way that she keeps fighting over and over for humanity. And like we already said, she navigates some of the parallels that we're facing today with war and environmental collapse and inequality. And what sets her apart is her dedication to committing for justice in the moments that are important. And that's like where I'm really hoping that we as a humanity kind of step up and use her as an example now. Like the Belters, like they were marginalized and they were literally kind of suffocating. They weren't getting enough air, or they don't have just the basics of the air and the water, and their bodies are fragile, and that's why they're kind of like taller and thinner, and they didn't have access to any kind of care. And at first, Avasarala, her focus was on Earth, her home, and she was thinking more about how to handle all of her own crises. But then eventually she came to discover the humanity for the Belters and see them as like this oppressed people that needed to be fought for. And she did, escalate some tensions there, with Marco and Erich and stuff like that. But I think she tried to understand their struggle. And how often do we see a leader who's willing to kind of to wrestle with their own biases and navigate those complexities? That's kind of that's what makes her different. And so, and right now the Earth is also like polluted, overpopulated, and very vulnerable, and that's kind of what she was dealing with. But even though she wasn't seeing it as an environmental crisis, as I feel like I'm seeing it now, her fight to preserve humanity it's really tied to the choices we can now make, about our resources and our survival as a one human race. And so I think she's such a great example to see our shared responsibility, as like kind of the only path forward, just because everything that is our fundamental life is like clean air and water and a livable planet, which we're on the crux of really messing up and destroying. And so, but I think also like that, her relationship with Jules Pierre Mao, having some of the like worst human rights abuses in the show, where he basically weaponized the protomolecule and was using people as lab rats. And she, as a political figure, could have kind of turned her eye, but she chose not to. She chose to like kind of get in the way and burn bridges. I think she leaks classified information and put herself in danger to kind of to choose what was right in the moment. And I think if we believe in human rights, like universal human rights, we don't choose like when it's convenient or when it's, if it's going to cost us, we just choose it because that's what we choose. Like how you were saying, Scott, we can all want that. And I think we should all want that at some point.
Let's persuade each other to want it. Just a quick comment, and then someone else please jump in. One of the things I love that they did with her character was she chose to, in a sense, she was played at the end, right? But she stepped out of power. And that's something that is a hallmark of American democracy in particular, is the graceful transfer of power. And of course, we've had recent experiences with that. And it's very disturbing to see what happens when people won't do that, because that's probably one of the more rational aspects of democracy. And that is, you give up your identity and you move out of it gracefully, and you afford someone else the opportunity to struggle as you did when you were dealing with the nuts and bolts. So I love the fact that they addressed the nature of power and the psychology of power so well. Anyone else?
Scott, just real quick. Both Nadine and Chad have been way too modest. Your characters had incredible arcs, both of your characters, because, Fred's arc started happening before we met him. And we there was continuing arc going on there. And let's face it, Nadine, your character, Clarissa, Peaches, that's a phenomenal arc. And you took it all the way through. So you guys both, and with Chad, yours was very subtle, because your character kept growing and changing. And one of the best moments, which is a horrible thing to say, was when you were shot in the back, because that betrayal there, it had to hurt so much. And so, and it's just the look on your face too was wonderful. I'm sorry, but it was wonderful. It was perfect. But you guys
I was
both
right
did
about to say the same thing.
the subtlety,
The
right?
expression.
Yeah, the subtlety of your performances, it brought it home. We were all watching. And Erich too, it's like the subtle thing is, if you guys have ever met Jacob, he's such a nice person. But as Erich, you're such a bastard, and you're a wonderful bastard. But you're right, he's not a good person. He is not a good person. That's all I have to say.
People, I think they touch on it in the books more, but yeah, Erich is not a nice guy. I mean, I think you could, I think you can get into the dirt with Fred, and you could justify politically why he might have, I don't know, but I don't know. Erich is, you can't, he does what he does because he has money to protect himself and his interests. And I think when you're referring to human rights, I think this show constantly asks the question, well, who is asking? Because it depends who you're a citizen of and how much money you have, and that kind of determines your universal human rights. Our characters, Nadine, were kind of, I don't know if you thought about it this way, but I sort of thought of us as the little good angel and the bad angel on Amos's shoulder through all of season 5. Just because I wanted to, I guess who we took with us on the escape shuttle out of Earth was based kind of on their usefulness. If they were useful to me, I was happy to let them on the shuttle, but you sort of took everyone deserves a chance at the expense of the whole party. And I still know people who are fighting about that to this day, whether or not you should have let the townspeople on the shuttle.
I love that cross arc between the two characters where Nadine's character is working her way up from the darkness, and Erich is like finding a better way to steal.
Nadine, you were going to say something?
Oh, no, I think, both the characters in their own way are kind of trying to make their own worlds work in a survival mode. And I think Clarissa started climbing out of that really deep hole, trying to find a sense of the collective, but it took a lot of grieving and trying to figure it out. And I think that's kind of where she started seeing a bigger whole, or seeing a little bit of community and in the Rossi crew. But
Yeah,
it's, when you're just in survival mode, it's hard to act who's being left out, who's being exploited. Let's help them, because you're just trying to help yourself. So I think that's like where it gets really complex with universal human rights. We kind of need everyone to have this fundamental level of safety and security and belonging, but those are the kind of the basic rights that we're fighting for in the first place. It's almost like a chicken and the egg.
Quick question though.
When the rocks.
Let's go with Jacob first. Go ahead, Jacob.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, when the many times in this show, when people's backs are up against the wall, including like when all of those asteroids are thrown at Earth and everyone's kind of in survival mode. We get the sense that like when you got to look out for yourself, you got to look out for yourself. But and I think we see a lot of examples in this show of when rights are kind of something you can afford when you have a lot of slack, when you have lots of supplies, lots of money, that's when it's easy to give people rights. And I think the question that it constantly asks people is, how do we look out for other people's rights when the budget is tight and there's not enough resources? And because that's what it kind of brings out the side of people that's more concerned.
No, I love what you're saying there, because we all have to make work happen in multiple scales of life, individual relationships, group relationships. And my favorite philosopher is a guy named Michael Oakeshott. And he said one of the problems of the ways we experience democracy in contemporary culture, actually he was writing 80 years ago, is that we don't see democracy as actually this huge achievement in human cooperation. It's the biggest achievement in human cooperation ever to agree that we're going to collectively organize ourselves around abstract concepts that are set up in a ways to defy certain forms of power. Now, do they work? Well, not always. And, some places, so in some ways it bothers us to the extent it doesn't work. But it still was the first time, one of the first times in history where we decided we wanted to be this way and we were going to organize ourselves around cooperation. So sometimes democracy, and maybe the last decade or so, we've really felt like it's on the brink of extinction, at least in the United States to some extent. But it's about what we want and how much we're willing to work for it. And so
it's difficult, man. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy.
yes.
I think inevitably why it's, unraveling is because, the hypocrisy that's so evident. And we had an opportunity to do something that, as not only just window dressing, but we had an opportunity to really reflect the we the people, the notion of,
Yeah.
and it still feels like we've chosen money, power, and control, and just hide behind the veil of kind of a false democracy, if you ask me.
No, well, yeah, I completely agree with you. And how we go, please go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, well, I guess
Jacob, I'm sorry, I'm looking across the screen. Please go ahead. And then whoever wants to speak up after Jacob, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll do it. Go ahead, Jacob.
Michael actually had something that I didn't want to. Anyway, I guess we all talking. I am not a philosophy major, so I'm sorry that I'm not as versed in talking about rights. But I feel like a lot of us think that rights are something that we inherently have. Maybe we've been trained to think that way, but rights are something that you inherently contain in and of yourself just by the nature of your being. But if you think about getting rights, receiving rights, or implementing rights, they are kind of this thing that you may be inherently entitled to, but kind of exists as a function of how much other people in the system allow you to have. So there's your rights are an individual thing, but they exist as an extension of everyone, of the people you live with.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that one. What do we want?
The systems that are created, the people who have the leverage to create the system to then kind of define the rules of engagement, that's why it just feels like we're just at the mercy of, people who have a tremendous amount of power and lack humanity.
Can't disagree with you at all. Oh, go ahead. Okay, so
I was just
go
gonna
ahead,
say
Michael.
that,
Michael, just a sec. We're gonna do Michael, and then I'm gonna ask Chris K to tell us how she thinks the Expanse speaks to universal human rights, and then we're gonna go to Chris Blackwood. Okay, I just want to get some order set up here. So go ahead, Michael.
Okay. Sorry. But
no, it's all good.
I'm going along with what Jacob said. Erich didn't have the luxury of having human rights. If you've read the story, his life was horrible. He barely survived, and he survived because of Timmy. And so it's kind of one of those luxuries that we have, that we can talk about, but it shouldn't be a luxury, but I think it is. And to a certain extent, you have as many rights as you have resources, all right, at the basic level, but then you get too many resources, and then you start having people, get a little bit greedy, a lot greedy and stuff. So I just think it's really very, very complex, and it starts at a certain point, and those certain levels of, well, if we've got enough for everybody, what happens then? Can we can have basic then, but what does basic become? 50% of Earth is on basic. The Belt thinks they're all a bunch of freeloaders. Well, they kind of are, but it's kind of messed up. It's a bad system. It's not a system that really works for everybody.
On that note, we're going to go to Chris Keller. Chris, what aspect of the Expanse do you think speaks to universal human rights?
I'd like to talk about Holden. We've discussed him before. I kind of refer to him often as the space Boy Scout, because he starts his whole arc as this like really like, I don't want to be the boot. I want to go help the Belters. And he goes off and gets a job on the Canterbury, bringing ice back and forth. And next thing you know, he's thrust into all of these crazy situations as an everyman. So he, with his 8 parents from different backgrounds and, you know, like different strains of human history, like he's got a Hispanic parent, he's got a grandparent who's from Nigeria, he's got, you know, this like complex parentage, and grew up as a farm boy in Montana. And all he knows how to do is go help save the land because the land needs him, as his mother says, one of his mothers says. Next thing you know, he's trying to do the right thing by blabbing to everybody and starting war number 1. And then he goes on and starts war number 2 until his attempts to try to save everyone drive Naomi so crazy that she finally takes him in hand and says, hey, it's not all your fault and you can stop now. Let's try to do what we can when we can. And I think he actually says something I thought was really beautiful. He says, to her after Eros, as long as we're living and breathing, there's more we can do. We just have to be strong enough. And through the course of the show and the books, that's his thing. He just keeps hoping to do a little bit better every time and ends up, you know, like putting himself in these terrible situations to Naomi's chagrin and trying to find ways to make it better for everybody and broadening his definition of who his family is until he feels like the whole world is just, every human being is his family. And it's a dangerous way to look at the world, but I don't think we have a whole lot of choice anymore. It's either all of us or none of us now.
I'm really, really glad you brought up Holden, because there's a way you can look at the Expanse as a Mother Earth Gaia type when you look at the women that are in charge of basically Earth, Mars, and the Belters in the end. And in that space, Holden becomes a wonderfully productive drone, right? In other words, he's moving back and forth, trying to save Mother Earth, but not necessarily trying to be in power. And it's just a different take on masculinity than we usually see, right? Usually we see a more patriarchal model with the man being in charge, giving everybody rough and tumble orders, because blah, blah, blah. So I thought the world was well written, that it was well navigated, and he was a Boy Scout for real, and that's what they're trained to do, right? So I very much appreciate you bringing that up. Anyone else on Holden?
I was just going to make one comment to that
Go
comment.
ahead.
He is the Boy Scout and he's very self-righteous, but again, there was a line, I think it's in season 2 from Anderson Dawes, that says, you have the luxury of that opinion because Earth is still standing. And Earth people were not experimented on, killed, thought of as less than, something along those lines. And I don't think he really thought about that. I mean, he kind of Holden kind of glossed over it because he was so righteous in his thoughts of, we need to help, we need to come together peacefully. And Anderson is thinking, yeah, well, but that doesn't really work for us. Right. It hasn't worked for us in the past. And I don't think Holden comes to grips with that until much later in the series.
That's true. And I think what he does in the end by handing over his presidency as soon as he gets it to the person who it should have gone to in the first place, I think that's a very good way to end his arc in that way that you're talking about.
Yeah, I love it. Anyone else on Holden? All right, then let's go ahead and go to Chris Blackwood.
Yeah, so I think the best example of universal human rights for me in The Expanse is Kamina Drummer. And the reason here is that she starts out as this fierce warrior fighting for the autonomy and the freedom and the ability for her people to survive, right? But she expands her view from the nationalism, much like Avasarala does. She expands her view from that narrow nationalism of my people to all people. And in the end, she brings supplies to Earthers, even though these guys have been her enemy for so long. And she kind of starts fighting for equality for everyone. And that's really her big theme, right? She doesn't want to be superior. She doesn't want anyone to take from anyone else. She just wants everyone to have some. And I really, really admire that conviction. And she's got this really amazing quote about colonialism that I want to share. The Mormon pictures in my office always made me laugh, celebrating the pride of the inners, a history of coveting another's homeland and killing to take it. I believed in Fred's vision for an independent belt, but now that we're free, we're painting those same pictures, murdering innocent people, our own people, in exchange for peace with the inners. I just thought that was such an amazing concept.
Anyone want to react to that? Go ahead, Julius. Julius, go ahead.
Yeah. So really, I want to bring up two characters. I don't want to think of like in binary terms, more like multi-spectral terms of fighting to get those rights. You have, in contrast, Fred Johnson and you have Marco. You have to have a catalyst, right? This story gets repeated throughout different places. You got Mugabe and Robert Mugabe and Mandela, right? You have Professor X, you have Magneto. In the Expanse, you have a multispectral depiction because you have Anderson Dawes, you have Fred Johnson, you have Marco, and you have Carmina, right? But the thing is, nothing gets happened without a little hammer. Some gotta come and break things, just like like in Silicon Valley, like hey, let's break things in a hurry and find out.
We've discussed that issue on a few Comic-Con panels, right? I think Michael runs a panel on something about the villains. Who are the villains, right? And my thing about Marco is he's the one that threw the first rock. Now we can judge that, we morally judge that and say it was wrong. At the same time, that's how most revolutions have ever occurred. And the thing about it, once those people play that role, as you said, they end up usually not being the person that stays in power afterwards, because that's not the kind of temperament to govern. So no, I very much appreciate your comment about different people playing different roles.
You need that catalyst, regardless of how destructive they can be or evil.
Well, I would have a hard time saying in public that we need Marco, but I totally understand what you're talking about. I totally get it.
So you're saying Marco's like the boogeyman that you say, hey, it's going to be me, or
well, I mean, why did they sit down with MLK? They're we can't deal with the Panthers. You know what I mean? We can't deal with the Nation of Islam. Like you have to have like the carrot and like the hammer type of approach, and you have to have a multispectral way of looking at things, just like the Expanse. You have 4 different visions when it comes to achieving rights for the Belters in the Expanse. You have Anderson, Kamina, you had Fred Johnson, you had Marco, you even had what's Straighther's character?
Clay's Ashford.
Clay's Ashford. You know, so you have to have a multispectral approach to seeing like actuators are trying to get that human rights.
Yes.
Well, the reality is, guys, let's face it, that nobody listened to the bell. I mean, you literally could get away with something like Eros and killing 100,000 people, and so what's the response to that? And the fact that Marco, it's like, if you think about Marco and you think about Diogo, okay? He becomes radicalized because of all the things that happen, and it becomes reasonable to do something as horrible as to kill literally 1 billion people by throwing a rock at them, because number one, that's a statistic. It's not something you feel, right? A billion deaths is something we can't comprehend. 1 death we can. A billion deaths is what? A statistic. But nobody wanted to talk to them. Remember, nobody would talk to them before then. And then after Marco, everybody's talking to them.
We're bordering on that topic, which I don't mind discussing, and it's very, very real. And the topic is what does it take to get rights? And I remember being in a discussion with some students about 3 or 4 years ago, and I mentioned how slavery ended in this country through a civil war. And one of the other faculty members said, "Are you saying that we should go to war?" And it's like, what are you not watching? What are you not understanding, right?
I will quote a friend of mine. We are in a war we're trying to end.
Yeah.
We're still in a civil war.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Chad? Go ahead, man.
No, I just like that statement. We're still in a civil war
Yeah.
that we're trying to end. I totally agree with that.
So, hey, look, we have some questions from the audience here. I'm going to go ahead and read those. We have one from Warren Nickerson. Human rights was underlying theme of season 4 on Illis and the fight of the Belters. Maybe why so many fans I've seen seem to identify with the Belters. What do you guys think? Anybody, just jump on it. It's all good.
Well, the Belters
The Belters are so cool. Everyone loves the Belters. I don't know if it's just this reason. I mean, that's a very well thought out point, but like everyone loves the Belters. Like my character's an Earth person, and we're kind of deemed the house cats of the three. And I'm just yeah, everyone loves the Belters. They're so gung ho. They're so ready. They're so hardcore.
They represent the people and they represent everyone. Even their language is a hodgepodge of all of these different languages over time. And then, they're kind of like District 13 and, oh my God, what series am I thinking of? They're the underdogs, and Mars is representing the power and Earth, the precious resources, the haves of some of them. But the disparity, I think everyone can kind of understand that gap of where we're heading if we don't fix it and change these systems of, the CEOs making 450 million bonuses and then all of the workers are like, I don't have health insurance. Like this like huge disparity gap that's happening right now that everyone's feeling in America. That is just going to permeate and spread, and like it's not getting better. It's like we have to make some really big choices as a humanity to try and change that. And I think the Belters represent all of us in the know of saying, yeah, this is what we're all fighting for something. And they got their voice in. They got their voice in. However, we're gonna have to do that.
Well, one thing I really, really liked about how they depicted the Belters was just not abstractly in terms of their political struggles, but also in terms of the way they loved each other, the sort of communal relationships they shared. These are things that that they didn't force on the show, but nonetheless, I remember Kamina and her relationship with her crew and what we may have thought that meant from a particularly puritanic view of relationships. It was so well written and so well acted. We just saw it. They just showed it to us, what that kind of communal love looks like. And then it was up to us to figure out what we thought that meant. And it made perfect sense that it would be an oppressed culture, right? That would share their love with each other that way. I just thought it was amazing.
It takes a lot of. No, go for it, Kelsey.
All right, go ahead. I was going to say that kind of paralleled James's family because they were deemed as a little bit out there, other, because he had 8 parents that all lived together on a commune, and I just thought of that parallel when you said that about the Belters.
Yeah. I didn't mean to imply that it was unique to a particular group, but there's a story of lived life that they told, and they didn't tell it with words. They just showed it to us, and I think that's a huge achievement. I got another question here from Jefferson Ogata. I'd like to hear about any upcoming projects we might get to see Nicole, Mundell, Coleman in. Love all 3 of them in the Expanse and want to hear more. So we'll start with Nadine. What do you got coming up, Nadine?
Oh, I don't know. Hopefully more Expanse. We'll see.
There you go.
Maybe those universes will come back together. Right now, I'm actually working on a book called The Centered Self, a guide and journal to rewriting your life's narrative, which I'm hoping will push people to explore their inner worlds that leads to these kind of questions we're asking right now. And how do we get humanity on the same page? I think there's, a lot of inner work that we do to get there, and a jewelry line about women empowerment. So that's what I got coming up next year.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll have to read that book when it comes out. That sounds great. How about you, Chad? What do you got coming
Well,
up?
we'll start with what you guys probably don't want me to mention. It looks like the Orville will be coming back. That's
Mm.
for that's one thing. It's another great show.
Mhm.
Love that show.
Don't put Bob's Breaks up there right now.
How many kids do you have on the Orville now? That's what I want to know.
Oh no, right now we're still very much dealing with the one we have. So it's a lot going on with her, and I'm proud to represent the storyline. I'm also going to play Don King in the Untitled Christy Martin project with the Sydney Sweeney and Ben Foster. Sydney's playing Christy, and Ben's playing her trainer husband, psychopath, out of this world. I don't know how to describe this maniac, but it's
I was trained by Freddie and Pepper Roach, so that's like a well-known story in the boxing community. I never turned pro, but I had a couple of smokers.
Oh, there you go, brother. So I'll piggyback off of that with my reality TV series called Chad's Fighting Chance. Basically, I was inspired by Calvin Ford, which is the storyline of the character Dennis Cuddy Wise I played on The Wire years ago. And I came up with something in '06, a reality series about Calvin's life and following the kids and the whole educational component he has going on inside the gym and the community, and just, the overall servant's heart. And so we finally got a green light on that from All the Smoke Productions, which is used to be Showtime Boxing. So we're in the throes of kind of inking out the paperwork right now, but I'm excited for that. The series will start at Calvin's gym, and Calvin is the trainer of lightweight champion Gervonta Tank Davis.
Yeah,
it was right there in Upton Boxing Gym. I was right there. I was, David Simon and Ed Burns told me to be sure to stick to the hip of Calvin Ford, and I was there, and I witnessed this little boy pounding away on the heavy bag, and I said, "Who is that?" He said, "That's going to be my champion," and that was a 7-year-old Gervonta Tank Davis. So he is now lightweight champion, and Calvin is still pouring into young people and all different ages. So the show starts in Baltimore in that gym. Then we move to season 2 in Philly, season 3 in Boston. Season 4 will be Detroit and New York. And then season 5, which is crazy exciting for me, is going to be at Native American boxing gym on a reservation with, her name is Melissa Drywater. She was a champion. He knows Christy Martin well. She's won one of her belts. Her son is a champion. But we'll be able to explore the whole Native American experience as it is, and hopefully open some eyes and have some folks want to be supportive of the cause. So those are some of the things I have going on. I have a lot happening. Bob and I have a show called Imagine, which is an acronym for I May Ascend, Gifted in Newfound Energy. And Dr. Munroe over there is the visual effects specialist, head of that, and an EP on the show. So we're actively shopping that right now as well. And it's about a young girl of color who's a superhero, takes place in Malibu. And it's a bona fide, exciting, amazing experience we got going with Nikki Lunn and Scott Dennis as well. So that's my stuff so far.
And I just want to jump in there quickly and say I just EP'd. I was executive producer on a movie with Ben Foster, just finished a while ago. Ben, you're gonna love Ben. He's a great guy.
He
Yeah,
is.
and I saw Chad in hair and makeup, dressed up as Don King. Amazing.
Only in America, baby. Only in America.
It's amazing, like the transformation. And Chad's also going to Belize in 2 days to shoot a movie.
That's right. Yeah.
You're gonna be on camera in like 3 days. Like you forgot about that. So
That's
I love
amazing.
that you're playing a Don King and you're saying, oh no, but her husband, he's the crazy one.
Oh,
That's got
trust and
some
believe, if
texture.
you stab somebody 15 times and almost stab their cat off their body and then walk in and out of the room to see if they're dead and then stand in front of them and take a 9mm gun, a pink one at that, which was hers, and shoot her in the chest and then proceed to go in the bathroom and just take a shower and then dye your hair.
Mm.
Oh my God.
As much as Don King has done, for sure, it pales in comparison to that.
That is
To
a lot
my
to catch
estimation.
up on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And since Bob started saying something already, Bob, why don't you tell us what you're up to, and then I'll ask Jacob to do the same.
All right. Well, I'm on a show right now that is going to be taking up pretty much most of my time, with the exception of the things I've got going on with Chad and a couple of other things I've got in development. But I'm working on Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein right now.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Fantastic.
Wow.
For
My
Netflix.
favorite VFX person and my favorite director are now collaborating.
Oh no,
Wow.
not
Yeah.
Guillermo's been a good friend of mine for over 30 years. I did Mimic. I did his first North American film. I've done 5 movies with him. I did the first
Mm.
VFX breakdown for Hellboy. I've done a lot with Guillermo's been a really dear friend for 30 years. So
Amazing.
yeah. So yeah, we're doing Frankenstein, which is a big film for Netflix right now. And matter of fact, I keep looking at my screen over here because there's a shot I've got to look at. Because there's tonight at about 20 minutes or 10 minutes from now, there's a final deadline for any shots going into the screening copy that Guillermo is going to be showing to Ted Sarandos, the head of Netflix, in a couple of days. So I keep looking at like when the shot's coming in. That's why I keep doing this on this screen. So I apologize. I'm working on Frankenstein while we're on this call. So, and it looks
That's incredible,
amazing.
man. That is, I'm so excited to see that for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is going to be Guillermo's absolute masterpiece on top of other masterpieces. You know, it's a movie that I think he will probably retire as a director on. He'll continue to write and produce, but directing is taking its toll on him. And this was a 114-day shoot across 3 different countries. Most of it was shot in Canada, but also in London and Edinburgh. So England and Scotland, obviously. And it's just taken its toll. You know, I think he's going to be happy, much more happy now just producing and writing than he is going to be directing after this. Because I mean, we're not even going to be done until July, you know, and it's been going on since last February. You know, so it's a big epic.
Oh my goodness. I know it's going to be incredible. I know it.
All right then, Jacob, how about you? What do you got coming up?
If you are in Chicago and you enjoy live theater, last year I launched my one-man play. I've been writing it for 8 years. It's about the mental health struggles of Edgar Allan Poe, and I self-produced it last year and rented out a theater space, produced it, directors, all that, and it's been picked up. My show has been purchased, and it's going to be produced by the Lifeline Theater Company sometime this year. Check back later. I do stand-up comedy in Chicago, so you can always check out my Instagram feed. And speaking of human rights, I'm raising money for North Korean refugees who are trying to escape China to a better life. So I just threw my link in the chat there. If you can throw me $5 or $10 to help refugees escape one of the worst countries to live in on the planet, I would appreciate it very, very, very much. Even $1 or $5 helps. And check out my website for my play, jacobmundell.com. And thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank all of you for being here. This has been absolutely amazing. I want to ask quickly if Sean Thornton is in the audience. Again, Sean Thornton's a guy who does this amazing visual work. I told him I'd ask him in about 8:20. Sean raised his hand. Okay, Jana, could you let Sean in the room? Or Summer?
Yep, we'll do that right now.
Cool beans. All right, Sean will be here just a second, but I told him I would Yeah, I told him I would let you guys meet him because I got to tell you a little story about this. I don't know what he knows about the Expanse, but I sent him the image. You can get this image online. And then I drew a little sketch of what I wanted in there. And Sean, open your camera and your mic. Please, I'm sorry. Everyone, this is Sean Thornton, great illustrator we have working for ReggieCon. So Sean, what was it like to work on the piece?
Oh, it was very cool. First of all, thanks for having me. Nice to meet everybody.
Hello.
It was fantastic, especially the scene that it sort of depicts being a sort of a linchpin to the series. So it was really cool to try to express that connection between the two characters. So it was a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, I think that image is going to make its way around the world in some form or another. Really well done, as always, Sean.
Thank
you
you.
knocked it out of park. Thanks for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always great to be part of ReggieCon.
All righty then. So we're kind of getting close to the end here. So first thing I want to do is share with you what we're doing at our next ReggieCon panel. So on Tuesday, January 21st, we'll be celebrating MLK Day with a discussion of Parable of the Talents, a graphic novelization done by Damian Duffy and John Jennings. John Jennings is the illustrator. He also did Parable of the Sower. He also did Kindred. Amazing transformational works about one of my favorite authors' takes on the future. And then also joining us at that panel will be the wonderful women of Sister Speak Productions. Sister K will be here again. And then her colleagues, Sister J, Sister LM, and Sister A. So we'll have you can see this QR code on my page here. Take that. That'll take you to the ReggieCon page. You can see the link. And for the Zoom panel, it's open to the public. Please share it widely. And hey, Bob, Chad, Nadine, and Jacob, thanks so much for joining us this evening and making it to our discussion.
Thank you so much for having us. It's just awesome to see you guys. Always. Thank you so much.
No.
And, the one.
Hi. Hey, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
He's 11 and he's amazing.
Aww.
Oh, hey, bud.
Your smile. You got your smile.
Yeah.
It looks like we have. Go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's my little king. That's all.
So it looks like we have someone who raised their hand. I don't see that image of the person who raised their hand. Did you have a question you wanted to type or type it in the right? Where did I see?
I think everybody was waving goodbye, so probably put a hand up there somewhere at some point.
Okay. Okay. No, that's a good point. All right. On that note, then, let me just get this right. I can read it. Michael, Chris K, Chris B, Julius, and Kelsey. As always, it's great to see you guys again. We've done a bunch of Comic-Con panels together on the Expanse. And the day at JPL, like I said, was truly a peak experience. I don't know if you know the story, but Chad absolutely fell in love with my shirt. I wanted to gift him one for the holidays if I can find it where I bought it, but it was
yeah. Swaggy, baby. Swaggy.
You got to dress well in this world, right? So once again, thanks. So again, Michael, Chris K, Chris B, Julius, and Kelsey, thank you so much for being here. Always good to see you.
I will leave you guys with one other thing. I'm sure you've all seen the news, but Narain, Breck, Ty, and Daniel are all together again on a new show.
Wow.
A new show?
What is
I thought
it?
it was like a whole production company thing.
Yeah, they got that and a show with that started off called Captain's War.
Expanding.
It's not Expanse. It's the same team, but it's not Expanse.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It is.
I heard what I want to hear, Bob.
Awesome.
Oh, so yeah, the Warren Nickerson says, thank you all for making the time for this discussion.
Aww.
So thank you for writing that in, Warren. Once again, panelists, can we just get a round of applause for the people behind the scenes making us look like we know what we're doing today?
Thank you.
It completely matters that they're there. We very much appreciate it. And then A quick thank you to all those out there in the audience for joining our ReggieCon celebration of Universal Human Rights Month with a discussion of my favorite story, The Expanse. Until next time, have a good evening.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Guys, it was so great seeing
Bye.
you again.